we're launching the world's first digital impact card. This is a card for every meeting. We'll load it with cash and give it to the executives after that meeting so they can share it with the charity. What you're going to see tonight is a whole lot of business leaders talking about giving back.
You know, successful businesses are required to focus on profit margins and market share, yet, you know, I'm really delighted tonight that we are focusing on the opportunity to do really well in society.
You know, hope is a powerful thing. In some ways it's kind of like magic, but it doesn't always work out as we plan. See, the only real way to measure hope is by measuring the one thing that turns hope in reality, and that is with time.
We're working on areas of new, better and more philanthropy, which fits absolutely with the strategy of what Meet Magic have, is new innovative ways to get people to bring their wealth into society.
But really it's about people, and it's about connections with people, and it's about creative people doing creative things and incredible ideas being brought to life.
We have an incredible brand called Shit Happens. We have it to a light. We also have an incredible coffee company called The Grain Coffee, because our idea is that if we make everyday products that everyone can substitute, then you can support a disability-owned business and we can actually start to solve our own problems.
But the problem I wanted to solve was there were a lack of systems and tools. There was great technology to help with CRMs and employee engagement, but what about connecting staff to bring their whole self to work? Not everyone can work for a charity, but everyone can make a difference. And we're really proud to launch this impact card concept and be the technology underpinning this with Carl.
You have such an amazing cross-section of supporters, people on both sides of the Meet Magic platform who want to do good through the way they can. So really pleased to be here, and good on you, Carl. Meet Magic 2.0.
In years to come with this card, the impact card, what an impact it could have, and it's great to be part of it today. Thank you.
The feeling of belonging to our community, of people who want to give back, is in itself its own reward.
It looks like I haven't actually got changed. We're wearing the same clothes in that video as I was. But anyway, look, welcome to everybody. I don't know if you're here or not yet. We've had a few glitches in the platform with the streaming platform. But for those of you that don't know, that was a video that was just taken from the launch of our impact card last week. We had Raphael Rowe, the very famous guy from the UK, from the Netflix series World's Most Dangerous Prisons. We flew him out, and he came out and spoke. He's got a foundation that's helping. The word is recidivism, and what that means is stopping people from reoffending and going back into prison. So it's sort of making the world a better place through helping re-educate people that have come out of prison. But anyway, we launched the platform. We launched the card, the brand new platform card, as part of the Meet Magic service. So for those that don't know, like I said, I'm Carl. I'm the founder of a purpose-led business called Meet Magic, and it's a platform that really gives business leaders and decision makers an opportunity to give back just by doing what they do every single day at work, which is meetings. And I think today's podcast is a little bit different. We've got a client on, and I'm very, very happy that we've got a client on. Declan is the founder and the CEO of 7 Consulting. But I think, just taking a step back a minute, I think as a decision maker or a vendor, it doesn't really hurt to sort of check out the latest technology so you know what's out there when the time comes. So I'm sort of very, very grateful that Declan's come on board as a client, because they're at the forefront of technology and transformation. So, but I think from a sales perspective, one of the things that I read this morning, which is very cool, it came from the founder of Pavilion. And he said this quote, which I'll try and remember. He said, if you're in sales, or if you're a business and your business is about selling, because every business is about selling, to make more money, you have to invest in the creation of meetings. And this is really important, because it's meetings that create opportunities, and those opportunities create money. That's it. Salespeople turn those opportunities into money, but salespeople don't create opportunities. And it was so profound that I sort of, it just stuck in my head. And I think, you can be the salesperson with the best process in the world. If you've got no meetings, you're getting fired. Or you can be a salesperson with no process at all, but with tons and tons of meetings. and you'll make money. So I think the way what most marketing teams have to do at the moment is, you've got to invest in demand generation, and it's easy to do that with Meet Magic. So for what it's worth, we are the #1 rated B2B platform for decision makers to give back and do good. And you can Google us. So, like I mentioned, this podcast really is all about showcasing purpose-driven leaders. We're changing it up today and bringing Declan on. So, look, without further ado, I shall shut up talking and just introduce Declan.
Always entertaining listening to you talk, Carl.
Is it?
Never gets boring.
Well, I
if you're following the Einstein view of dressing, right? Basically, 10 suits, they're all the same, basically. So he didn't have to waste any of his thinking time every day. He just basically, what he had to wear, he just, wore that black suit every day.
Yeah.
Or version of
I can actually relate to it so much because, getting up in the morning, if you've just got to think about putting a t-shirt or whatever on, there's no question. And Steve Jobs did this, right? I mean, that was the whole principle behind that, which is very cool. But sorry about the glitch before. I don't know what happened. We've obviously had something go wrong with it. So Declan, look, thanks for joining us. You're the first client, I guess, that we've done this thing with before. And tell us a little bit about you and what your business is, because Seven Consulting are sponsors of a sporting team.
Well, we were the first sponsors of the Matildas. We're still a sponsor of the sporting team, by the way, but we were the first sponsors of Matildas back in 2017 up till 2023. So right past the end of the World Cup last year, which was a wonderful event. And, we've been replaced now in the sleeves by Coles. So we're not a large organization. We're 120 people. So be replaced by an organization nearly 100,000 people says a lot about the growth of women's football over the last 6-7 years. And we're delighted to be a small part of that. We've actually got a couple of Matildas still working with us today, which is great as well. We've trained them in our industry, which is transformational program delivery, right? And now we're the sponsors of the Seven Consulting Opals, which is Australia's national basketball team, women's basketball team. And, we go off to Olympics in a few weeks' time. And, they're the world ranked #3 at the Olympics. They're the second favorites for the title. Now, that sounds awesome, and it is awesome, and it's incredible for a country of our size. But America is quite a few leagues ahead, and I think there's something like 96% favorites for the title. But we're second.
That's quite incredible. So your brand is going to be all across the world when they're playing?
I guess we will be in that sense. We're up in China a couple of weeks ago, in Japan this weekend, coming up a couple of games away there. But look, for us, our community is Australian businesses delivering large, complex programs. That's what we do. We're not the technologists. I know you made an introduction earlier. We deliver technology, if I can distinguish between the two. So, and non-technology projects as well. But we are the project delivery specialists. I believe we're the best in Australia for that. Our Net Promoter Score and our customer satisfaction stats all back that up. Every single one of our clients is a reference site. So, we have reasons to make that claim. But at the end of the day, we're really a B2B. We're not, it's not as useful for us as maybe other brands being on those sporting teams. But when we heard about how little they were being paid and how little they were being supported, initially the Matildas had no sponsorship. The Opals hosted the World Cup here about 18 months ago and had no sponsors for hosting the Women's Basketball World Cup here. No sponsors. So from my point of view, even though we're a small company, we like to lean into our communities, and we see women's sports being one of those communities. We can't write the biggest check, but if nobody else is writing checks, then our check is better than the next one. We're glad to be replaced by CBA and Coles with the Matildas. And we aspire to that to start. We'd be replaced by much bigger organizations. And we're seeing that happen now with the Opals as well. Ford has come on as a sponsor. Signet's come on as a sponsor. We welcome all that. And hopefully at some stage, there won't be space for us, and we'll find another deserving area to support.
It's very cool. So do you actually, so some of those Matildas that are, I mean, my daughter played water polo, so I sort of get what it takes to play at that level and the commitment it takes and the cost involved. And often to get to that level when you're playing from school onwards, you actually forfeit going to university, or you forfeit getting a job, or forfeit getting a skill or a trade. So are you saying that you take some of those Matildas and actually train them in the world of program management and give them an opportunity?
So we've taken to Elise and Tamika, who both have, over 110 caps for their country, through over the last 6 years now. They started about half a year into the sponsorship. Elise is working 3.5 days a week for us at one of our clients at the moment. Tamika is in the World Cups, or not, Olympic squad, so she's focused on that at the moment in Paris. But we alternate based on their availability and their needs to support their sporting careers. We've also got Alice and Amy from the 7 Consulting Opals, who've just started their journey with us. So they're about 4 to 6 months in each. And, in each case, it is a short career. It can be shortened quite dramatically if you're unfortunate with injuries. And it can be difficult for them at times to have an alternate career. So we've effectively been training. We've had others, Lydia Williams, Kaya Simon, that have come in and worked for us on occasion, but not trained. They've done a different sort of roles in the organization as well. But I will say one last thing on it before we spend the whole time on it is you think they might not be educated, but both Elise and Tamika, for example, from the Matildas, have both got double masters.
Unbelievable.
So generally, they're the most educated people in the room. Despite the fact that they're off playing on global stages. So we can have the wrong assumptions at times. And I
can turn my phone off. I can tell you that the commitment and dedication it takes to actually play at that level is ridiculous. And the discipline it takes to actually win and keep going and coming back when you're failing is ridiculous. So they often end up making the best employees anyway.
Well, they bring, I think, about 3 or 4 things to bear. They come from a high performance culture, right? So basically, close enough's not good enough. They understand the value of teamwork coming from team sports. They are improved through their lives through coaching. So when we coach them in something completely different, they take it on board and they do well. They're good under pressure, all right? And basically they've got a resilience because you need to in the sort of careers and underfunded careers that they've had today. So when we started with Matildas, they were averaging 35 to 45,000 annual income a year across club and country, and sponsorships and all those things. That was the total of their income, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. And obviously things have changed a lot for the best now, but we do give them a career afterwards, which I think is useful.
I think it's brilliant. So well done. I kept my hat off to that because it's brilliant. It just, I know it's a concern for a lot of sporting people that what am I going to do after, or what am I going to do during, or how am I going to fund this? And that's a big thing. So let's go back to 7 Consulting. So obviously this is you've obviously built up a massive reputation in the country. So a lot of the executives that use Meet Magic, I think you probably know them all because they've been through this. Australia's a small country, right? There's only a trainer.
But yeah, we're very lucky because the company started, I guess, in my attic back in Drummoyne at the time, and the joke was, would we ever get to 7 consultants? We're not huge, just say 120 people, but a lot of our people are very senior program directors, all permanent staff, and we're running across our team about $4 to $4.5 billion of work for our clients. Now that is bigger than any of the individual big 4 banks, right? So it's quite a large portfolio, and to be hitting, last year we hit 99.5%, a record for us, customer satisfaction. This year we're running at 99.48 this morning. I have it sort of on my phone. Basically, I can get it up at any point in time. It's the most important number in the company. But basically, to be getting 199 positive reviews out of 200, or have a dissatisfaction level of basically, there's a 99.48 at the moment, have a dissatisfaction level of around 0.5% across different characteristics are marking us on, I think is a great place to be. But Rust never sleeps, and we have to keep at it the whole time. The days are not short.
So what's the gap? What are they marking you down on?
Look, it could be anything. I mean, as say, we're running projects that could be $1 million, it could be $500 million programs, right? So those things are not naturally set and forget, if that makes sense. My background is chartered accountancy. It's a very mature profession. I would argue that program management, which is maybe 60 years old at best, 50 to 60 years old, is not as mature. We're still learning how to better identify talent in that space, train and support that talent, have good, strong processes in that space, and indeed build the right sort of tools, which we've had to do a lot of that in-house ourselves, and have our own in-house tools development team, which a number of clients now have purchased those tools from us. But it's compared to accountancy where I came from, where the double entry accounting system, I don't know how old it is, but it's got to be hundreds of years old, right?
Yeah.
People have been doing accounting for thousands of years. They have only been doing development of IT projects for 50, 60 years. It's not as mature. I feel if we're getting up, frankly, at the 99.5%, we're doing pretty well. Only one of our competitors that sort of shows their figure in that space is at 93, and they're thrilled. So, I feel we're going pretty well. So at the moment, we have 34 clients, including 4 of the top 5 banks in Australia, large telcos, so on and so forth. And every one of them's a reference site. So I can go and say to potential new clients and say, here's, I don't know, last 40, 50 companies who work for you, pick the referees.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. I mean, you don't get to those numbers without doing a good job. So what inspired you to do all this? I mean, you mentioned it came out of your attic in Des Moines, but what was it? Was there something? Do you know what? I asked this question to a lot of the technology leaders that come on this, and there's been this crazy theme. Every time I say what inspired you growing up, like 6 or 7 of them have said Dr. Spock and watching Star Trek. I mean,
I'm not going to continue that theme for you, unfortunately. I saw a little bit of Star Trek, but it certainly wasn't the dominant theme. Look, I worked with some other people I thought were outstanding in this case, and 5 of us basically decided to set up a firm because we respected each other's work, and we're all going to sell our houses to do so. And my wife basically supported me in that, and other conversations were had in other houses, and suddenly 5 became 1. Now, of that other 4, one of them is a good mate of mine back in Dublin, 1 is retired, and the other 2 have been clients on a consistent basis. So we still have that respect for each other's work. But yes, I guess whatever, foolishly, with a newborn child and going from 2 incomes supporting 2 people to 1 business supporting 3 people, the decision was made to throw it all in the hat. And fortunately for me, that turned out to be successful. And what inspired was just a higher quality of work, right? I just wanted to work with people that I thought were really, really good in what I feel is an immature industry. And therefore, we could be proud of the work we're doing, but also the people beside us are doing. And look, that's been, again, not a huge company, but from my point of view, running over $4 billion of programs a year with nearly 100% satisfaction, that's been a pretty successful business over the last 22 and a bit years.
It's hard to think back. I mean, there's a question there about who are your mentors and stuff coming up when you're growing up as a business. Something that just occurred to me as we were sitting here thinking, you would have had no mentors when you set this thing up. There would have been people like Bob McKinnon, or Michael Hart and those sorts of people. Things have changed so much since their days, right?
I had a meeting with Bob McKinnon yesterday, so we dealt a lot with Michael Hart in terms of the core banking and many other projects in the CBA. My first meeting with him, he actually offered to buy my business. I was in there with Quinton Boys, and basically, I think it's on your list as well. And I'm not quite sure what he meant by that, but anyway, we went on. We had a laugh. Look, a mentor in terms of growing up was my dad, who had his own business and was a very hardworking and selfless individual who'd spend a lot of his evenings working with the homeless around Limerick, and we would have them in our house the Sunday before Christmas, basically where my mom and my dad and some friends would all look after them and cook them dinner after, frankly, finding them around town, right? Then basically business, a guy called Bob Kershaw, who would be known to Bob McKinnon as well, who was did many things, but when I met him first, he was the sort of head of delivery at EDS into CBA. And Bob, I guess he liked the cut of my jib. He saw something in me and encouraged me to leave the firm I was with at the time and set up my own practice. And he was indeed one of our first customers after 6 months of gardening leave in Ireland to make sure there was no contractual sort of issues. Bob did some work with me over the years as well. Has been a customer over the years. He's retired now, but he was a very straightforward talking Yorkshire man. And basically, you knew if you did good, you did bad. And, I like that. I like clear feedback, as we still get clear feedback from our clients today.
I'm not saying I'm the best consultant in Australia, but we're definitely in the top 1. I think it's quite incredible when we start thinking back to Michael's days and all those times. I had some great memories. That's how I started my career, basically selling into the banks. And Mike's a friend of mine now. We get him on WhatsApp, and he's obviously in Italy doing his thing now.
Yep.
Putting a pub on every corner of that island that he bought. But it's quite interesting. I think things have changed so much, and you're one of the things that really made me happy when you signed up, because you were one of the first people to jump on our platform and put your credit card in and book some meetings. And I'd love to know what that experience was like for you, by the way. But when you did that, I immediately got a sense that this is a guy that's purpose driven and is giving back, and sees the value in that. And clearly, with your dad doing that, those sorts of things, there must have been something in the water back then, Declan, because my parents did the same thing. They used to come out of a shopping centre in Tesco's in Nottingham, and you just hand over the shopping trolley to a homeless person full of stuff.
Yeah,
because they did everything.
I don't know. I'm a bit of a socialist, if that makes sense. I probably shouldn't say that in a business forum such as this, but I do believe in supporting people who need the support in the community. I'm not a communist. I do believe that you should get rewards for your efforts. But basically, I do believe in, everybody will need help at a point in time. And we do quite a bit into our communities in what we call Project 7, which is effectively a renovation of what could be a battered women's refuge, which we just did one in the Northern Beaches there in Sydney a couple of months back, or a refugee shelter, or a homeless children's shelter. And effectively, we work probably a bit more now with a guy called Dylan Flood. His building company is called Larde, and he just sort of helped us a bit over the first few years, but now he's become more and more engaged. So together with professionals, we're buying all the furniture to refurnish the place, and we've got staff coming in and their families coming in to help clean and rebuild and tidy and paint and all that stuff, a lot of painting. Basically doing like one of those shows on television where the place is renovated from a Friday afternoon to a Sunday evening. The people who need looking after are put in a hotel over the weekend, sometimes just for their comfort, but sometimes there's security concerns, and basically come back to what looks like a 4-star hotel from frankly what would have looked like a 1-star place of struggle before that. So we do 2 or 3 of those a year, and that's our main channel, apart from I guess community or sporting sponsorship. Our main channel of giving back into the community as a group, as a company. Obviously, people do individual things on top of that, and
it must feel good too. I know we talk to a lot of the execs who have our meetings. They often come away from the meeting feeling like they've made a bit of a difference at work, and that ultimately is what people want to feel when they go to work, right? We all want to be more engaged and more productive at work, and I think doing good like that really helps you become more productive.
It does, and obviously the appeal of your channel as well, right, is that introduction. Some people we don't know because we don't have any salespeople, right? So we basically, our theory is you do good work, and then people tell other people. Now, frankly, the middle of last year, the consulting industry was not in great shape, and we had our challenges with that as well. Things are looking great again now. So we were looking at different channels, and this was a channel that obviously had access to senior execs who'd be potential buyers of ours, and that money was going and doing good, right? So it was a double whammy sort of thing. So absolutely happy to be proud of it. When we're doing those sort of, charity-based renovation weekends, you come off that like after maybe 30 hours work over a weekend, fairly physically sore because we're office warriors, right? And basically, we're not used to basically leaning up there and painting and cleaning for many hours at a time. And but you feel real good.
Yeah,
right? You feel real good because you have the pictures of before and you have the pictures of after, and you don't necessarily get to meet the individuals who benefit from that. And obviously, they travel through that support home, so it'll be different people a few months later. But you get some notes from them and those sort of things, and they are quite.
It's heartwarming stuff. Let's go off to your business, because obviously digital transformation is on everyone's radar. I mean, I often say, it doesn't matter whether you're in HR or operations or finance. Technology is changing your industry, and that transformation piece is really, if you don't catch up with these vendors and talk to them and understand what's happening out there, you're going to miss a trick, especially with AI and cyber now. It's It's like everyone's responsibility to understand what's happening in technology. So is there any examples where you can share a transformation initiative that you guys have led? And I know this is a bit of a cliche thing with aligning people and technology and process, but it's a critical outcome, right? I mean, you often see projects that get started and fail because they've not aligned all those things.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about there, and obviously, in any given year, we've about 100 projects. I mean, the largest one that I had was building NetBank, or replacing NetBank for CBA back in the days. Bob McKinnon was there, and so on and so forth. Because I've been broadly, running the company for the most part since then. I still get involved with a number of assignments around delivery capability uplift. So I'm doing a couple at the moment for Australian Post and for Department of Employment and Workplace Relations, but I guess, I did a couple of online banking programs for CBA, and the first one was the sort of their second release of functionality in that space, and to sort of take over market leadership from Westpac, which we did, which was great, because you can find purpose in a number of ways. I was chatting to some of my graduates yesterday about this. I mean, we do work to help with manage the throughput of the renovation for New South Wales Rural Fire Service for their fleet, right? And we've increased by 200% the amount of replacement and refurbishment of their fire engine fleet. Now, finding a reason and a purpose for that is simple, right? You're saving property, you're saving animals, livestock, pets, lives potentially, right? So pretty easy to get that one. A little bit more difficult at times if you're replacing the payroll system, so on and so on, but you can. And sometimes it is that market leadership. So we built that out, and then we built a replacement system because it was growing so fast, online banking, that we had to build something that was more sustainable into the future, and we replaced it. We did that, and it still has a lot of those elements there today. And you got to have a holistic approach to program management. So I was going through this with Bob Kershaw back in those days. You got to manage up your steering committee, out to your stakeholders, your various working groups, but out also to your customer base, right? And to the people on the contact centers, and all the people required to basically, whether branches or whatever, to support it, right? And if you don't have a strong change management focus on your programs, you can best technology in the world, it's not going to be successful, right? So our job we're not the technology pickers, to be honest. We're familiar and all that, but that's not our expertise. We keep ourselves very narrow and very deep. We are the program delivery or the PMO that's attached to that, or the change management attached to that. That's what we do. That's 80% of our business, and 20% of our business is making that better, that capability better in our client organizations. So we're not going to be your technology picker. That will be, your architects and your visionaries in that space. We're the ones, once you pick it, will make it successful.
What about, we often get a lot of execs. I've had 3 this week. There's a lot of movement in the market at the moment for some reason. I don't know why, but they often come to us and say, do we know of anything that's happening out there in the market where we can connect them? Because there's changes. Obviously, there's a couple of CTOs this week that have said they're negotiating a new role, for example, and they're going to be, there's a 3-month gap between them starting that new role. And do I know of anywhere where there's a 3-month engagement or whatever, where they can do some interim stuff? How do you go about finding people for these? Do they just knock on your door? Is it like you're just so well known that they come to you?
So again, our roles will be program director type roles and program management type roles, so on and so forth. We do get a lot of door knocking, especially at the moment, because generally it's a relatively difficult marketplace out in that space at the moment. And we're going reasonably well. And I guess the reason we get good door knocking is I'd hope that we have a good reputation, not just in terms of delivery, but also in terms of looking after our staff. So our anonymous staff surveys, we run every 6 months. Now, being open and transparent, we took a dip in that last year. We're generally up around the high 97% anonymous staff satisfaction. We took a dip to 95.41 off the top of my head last year. So down about 2.5%. We're back up to the low to mid 97s at the moment. So most of that dip is gone because it was a bit more difficult market last year. But I think compared to any organization out there, having staff satisfaction around the 95 to mid 97s sort of percent is obviously, I think, still exceptionally high, and that drags people towards us. So for our staff, obviously access to mentoring, but lots of internal training. They get they get a training allowance. They can see as they spend as they see fit. Obviously get to work on a lot of major programs, but probably most appealing to them is a lot of people to learn from. Most org structures are a bit, badly doing a pyramid here, but a little bit like this. Our org structure is probably a bit top heavy. So because of the nature of the work we do, so therefore if somebody comes in, they've got a lot of senior people in our organization to learn from. We're looking for people that are good, but also are still desiring to learn, because I think, as I said earlier, it's an immature industry. Anybody says, I've learned it all, I know it all now, frankly, it's got no space here, because that just can't be true, right? We're still developing techniques how to better and more safely deliver programs, more consistently, more predictably deliver programs for those organizations. So anybody who's lost that learning gene, I'm not interested in them, to be honest.
It's funny, I remember having conversations with some execs around ROI. You've actually bought off on a project. Has anybody actually measured whether or not it's delivered the ROI? And 90% of the time, no one's measured the ROI at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, it's absolutely one of the clearest, starkest areas where the industry is not mature yet. So if you think about it, why do you do a project? Presumably because your benefits are bigger than your costs, right? That would seem sensible, right? Yet we spend 95% of our time focused on the costs, right? And 5% of our time, or maybe less, focused on the benefits, right? So putting a benefits management framework in place where people are held accountable for the outcomes of the project gives us about three massive benefits. I think is the biggest area yet to exploit. Now, there's some organizations have a bit of it. I'm not saying everybody's the same, right? Macquarie Bank, we put it into, Optus, we put it into, some are better than others. But basically, if you think about it, if you're going to get measured on, basically, if you're a sponsor and you're going to get measured the outcomes, not just the outputs that you created widgets and a new application or something like that, but the actual business outcomes, if you're going to get measured on that, for me, it creates three main benefits. One, you'll have sponsors doing less pet projects just for their own self-gratification, right? Because, just they're curious of the technology. It's going to be a little bit harder edge than that. Secondly, sponsors are going to keep closer to their projects because they're going to be measured on the outcomes. And thirdly, your portfolio governance, whether that's an EPMO, an ITV, whatever it is, whatever your divisional portfolio governance, whatever that group is, will start to build up data in terms of what types of projects are successful for them, i.e. cost reduction or revenue growth projects, and also basically which sponsors have built up a track record of success. And they should be trying to funnel the available funds, and not only funds, capacity, because often it's a capacity limitation, not a funds limitation of SMEs or architects or whatever, but they should be trying to funnel those funds towards the sponsors, towards the types of projects that have a track record of actually creating the actual benefits, not just basically getting them done.
It all sounds very complicated. I left school at 15. I left home at 16, and you're speaking like a double Dutch to me.
Sorry.
It sounds very complicated in those words. And I often think that's part of my insecurity is that I go in there and I listen to conversations like it's very interesting for me to listen to, because I have to go and try and work hard to understand what it's all, because it's all business speak, which for me is I need to learn to understand all that stuff, because it's we're not involved in it, but we should understand it at least.
So if you've got your own investment portfolio, right, and you put money into shares, you put money into a house, you put money into something, you look at what it's worth later on, right? And you go, property's working for me, shares or not, or whatever it is, right? In projects, we could spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a project, and nobody actually measures what difference that's made in the worth of the organization. And to me, that seems careless.
Totally. It really is. And often it's because people change jobs and there's so much change. And by the time a big project's finished, all of a sudden somebody else comes in and they go, I actually don't want to do that anymore. And all of a sudden you've wasted the money.
Correct.
I was talking to someone. I had a podcast with a guy in Canada, and this is his role, is to go out, because the company's so big. It's called Desangis or something. They've got 50,000 staff, massive. His role his total role is to audit all of the projects that are happening inside the company. They have a $50 million buffer as in money that's been set aside for delays and projects that are not working and whatever else. Ridiculous. That means somebody else's projects is going without because that 50 million has been allocated as a buffer against anything that might go wrong with other projects. And he was telling me these stories. I was just mind boggled. There was one particular project that was something like $10-15 million worth of some sort of transformation piece. And the owner of that project came to him and said, look, these are the timelines it's going to happen on. And he said, no, it's not going to happen until you've got the other people to do their piece. So there's another project downstream, and until that was done, and theirs was never going to get done, but they were already so far progressed with theirs, trying to finish theirs. They hadn't finished theirs. So all of a sudden, you've got no way of finishing that project. All of a sudden, it's a complete schmozzle internally.
Yeah, all those people have to wait till the other piece is done. So look, what you've opened up there, I could speak for half an hour. It ties into your portfolio optimization. So picking the projects that are going to have most impact are the ones that are least sort of connected. There's a concept called critical path day value, which is the impact of a project delay in a day, which also should consider the downstream projects from there as well. And then that should lead into where you prioritize your organization resources to have them minimize that sort of impact as well, right? It's not a mature industry, and it's one of the reasons we have a delivery summit every year. We just had it in Sydney there with about 56 organizations, and about 145 attendees or something like that, with the CIOs out of Macquarie Bank and different places speaking at it. And we just put on as a free day for our clients, friends of the company. And, it's about sharing best practice, and it's about sharing some of these concepts and lessons. And we've lots of breakout sessions and all that sort of stuff. Because again, I just think it's an immature industry. It will be immature after I'm dead, but hopefully a little bit more mature, and hopefully will have made a tiny little contribution to that maturation, I guess, of the industry. I do think one other thing, if I can pick up on there, though, there does need to be a buffer. Okay, so the reason there should be a buffer, and it probably should be at the end of each individual program, is because it's there for risk. Contingency is there for risk, right? And we have some clients that will say to us, well, we don't believe in contingency. And my answer is, well, then you obviously have no risk on this program. There's nobody going to leave in a key role. There's nobody going to get sick in a key role. There's nobody going to, even get worse than sick in a key role or get pregnant and have to leave that role. None of those things are going to happen in your project. All the things that you've purchased with the vendors, they're all going to deliver exactly on time. So there's absolutely no risk in your project, and therefore you don't need contingency. Now, I don't use those words because that's be a little bit sarcastic, but basically the bottom line is contingency is required for risk, right? If you are traveling to somewhere and it normally takes you 15 minutes, but you want to be there for a key meeting, you give yourself a buffer.
Yeah.
Okay? If it doesn't matter that much, if it's a small project, fine. I don't care. Yeah. But if it's a critical program, especially if it's impacting ones downstream, right? It's the same way, if you're trying to travel to a hospital for something, be there at 2:00. You generally give yourself a 10 or 15 minute buffer, right? If you do that for important stuff there, why not do it for important programs?
One of the things you mentioned, Declan, about transformation of your industry and the evolution of transformation and of delivery, visibility surely has to be one of the key areas to focus on here. And what I mean by that, when I think of one of our clients, for example, is a company called Teamform, and what they're doing is bringing. So let's just say you're a big company, you're a CommBank, and you're the CIO. The CIO's got 20 projects, 30 projects that are happening inside the bank, and they're all managed on a spreadsheet.
And the rest, yeah. Oh, they're not managed on a spreadsheet, but go on. PPM too. But
how do they? Well, I think for all those people that are running on a spreadsheet, there's all these projects that are in different phases and different stages. How do they keep a track of all that?
Look, theoretically, that's not that difficult, right? There's PPM tools out there. They are maturing. Portfolio management tools. They are maturing. So on and so forth. I think the quality of implementation can be a bit weak at times. We work with a number of organizations to try and help their visibility on those programs. An example would be that might resonate with some of your clients is we don't believe that milestones is a good indicator of the progress against milestones, a good indicator of project success. Indeed, I call them fool's gold. And a milestone might be the end of design or end of requirements or end of so on and so forth. And the problem is basically people hustle around the milestone because it's very visible to the sponsor, it's visible to the steering committee, it might even be visible to the board, it might even be externally visible, depending on the nature of the program. But it doesn't mean that items that aren't as visible aren't more important, either to the critical path. And what you tend to do is items, people hustle around those, but they're not doing other stuff. And then this project debt, I call it, these unfinished tasks that should have been finished but aren't as visible, overwhelms the program like a tsunami. So we call it sort of watermelon projects. It looks green on the outside. If you dig in, it's red on the inside, right? So everybody thinks it's fine. And probably the biggest question I get asked chatting to EGMs and C-level execs is, how can I avoid basically, everybody tells me the project's fine, and then it's fine, and then there's a little bit of smoke, and then suddenly it's an inferno. And there's nothing that can be done at that stage to recover it to anywhere near what was initially promised. How can I stop from being surprised? One of the presentations I did recently was 7 approaches in terms of the right data to look at on your key programs that will stop you from being surprised. I'm happy to share if anybody wants to reach out to me. So it's Declan Boylan, by the way, Boylan, but you can catch me on LinkedIn or hit the website or any of that sort of stuff. That's all right. But I've been, I'm sure I'll be called worse. But effectively, milestones are not that. If they're on the critical path, they may be important. If they're a month off the critical path, they're probably not as important as some of the tasks that are invisible to you, and people are not focusing on because those tasks are invisible to you, and they're trying to make sure that you're kept happy. But Connie McKeague is one of my advisors, and Connie got this quote, which I like, which is that the only difference between happiness and somebody being unhappy with you is time. Generally, if you come in and you try and make all the people happy at the start, you won't deliver what you need to deliver, and basically they'll be unhappy with you later. Whereas if you basically, not intentionally, not for any bad reason, make them unhappy to start by telling them, no, this and this and this need to change, and then you deliver, then they'll be happy with you later. So it's not about making them happy about the start, it's about making them happy at the end.
Yeah, I think the circumstances of our lives actually matter less to our happiness than the sense of control we feel over our lives. And that's, I don't think reality, I think reality isn't really a particularly good guide for human happiness, but it's an interesting human behavior. I'm fascinated with human behavior at the moment because we've got Rory Sutherland as our chief evangelist, and as you know, I saw
a bit of, I don't have social media with the exception of TikTok, and basically he came up on my TikTok a few times before, and then I saw him on your site. I actually quite liked it with TikTok because he takes some quite, and I don't know a lot about him, but he takes some counterintuitive views and then is able to substantiate that through. So I like the cut of his jib very much.
He's very clever. I mean, he says that we don't value things, we value their meaning, because things are determined by the laws of physics, but what they mean is determined by the laws of psychology. And that for me is really interesting because words can really change a perception, right? And if you see it was really funny because I was with him in London a couple of weeks back, and where he's based at Blackfriars, you can walk across the bridge, and he says, I can't even walk across the bridge anymore because he's got all these young kids coming to take a selfie with him. Because he's now on TikTok, and all the kids are on TikTok, and so everyone recognizes him as he's walking across the bridge. So he's getting a bit, and the downside to that is he's starting to feel a bit nervous. So he's a lovely guy. Really, I mean, he talks about magic being this beautiful thing of, it's got all of the efficiency of bribery with none of the corruption, which I think is a beautiful way. It's a beautiful way to describe what we do, really, because it is. It's like, you feel like you're getting something for the 45 minutes of your time, but you can't do anything with it. So it's not like it's not a gift, but you can gift that money to a charity, and so it's almost like the feeling of you getting something, but you're really not.
He's got a good and slightly edgy turn of words. I do like him. But just on happiness, I'll add 30 seconds if I can. For me, being relatively internally happy, and it's not one of those false things where I have ups and downs and stuff. Everybody's got a bad day, but for the largest part, I don't feel that way. And the reason is I give myself a context, right? Your family, your health, your business, all those sort of things. And I go, right, if I go through them, I'm winning the basketball game. I'm leaking a few points, right? There's stuff that isn't exactly to my liking on a daily basis. But if I add it up, I'm 70-30 or I'm 80-20 or I'm 90-10 up, right? I'm not going to get growly about the 20 I've leaked. I'm going to focus on the score of 80-20. I'm going to try and fix the 20. Don't get me wrong, whether it's personal or professional, right? I'm not just waving that through. How do we get better? Continuous process improvement or life improvement, whatever it is. But I'm also, the context, we're a first world country, come from a stable family, I got an education, food over the head, able to go and see music and the various passions that I have. If there's day-to-day frustrations, and there'll be some sad times for various reasons as well, and those things are real. But for the largest part, we're winning the game. And if you can't enjoy life when you're winning the game,
bro, we were at the I called you bro. We were at this event that we put on the other day, and I didn't realize that Jameson, one of the sponsors, was talking. He came and spoke, and he was talking about a story that I told him about me when I was young. I was 20 years of age and living in a council house in Nottingham. Just got a brand new baby, run out of electricity, got no money, couldn't feed him, couldn't warm a bottle up, so I had to go upstairs and get some clothes out, my old clothes, and burn them in the back garden. Put a pan on the fire and heat the bottle up inside the pan. And he told that story to 200 people, and it almost brought me to tears because I realized the distance traveled to where I am now to where I was. I've got no complaints. I could be as broke as anything and have no money and still be winning. And that for me, that's exactly that's my mindset, and it's exactly the same as what you've just said there. It's we've got a roof over our head, we've got food on the table. You're winning. You're winning more than 95% of the people on the planet.
Yeah, and basically, it doesn't mean we stop trying to make it better for us and for others around us. But also, basically, we are winning. Like, you got to work to grow the roses, but you also need to have time to smell them as well, right? And it's the combination of the two that is a life well lived. If you spend all your time growing and no time to smell them, that's not right. You'll die with a whole bunch of roses you never smelled. And if you basically try to smell them the whole time, you haven't spent any time growing them, that's not going to be very useful, right? Because you have a bag of seeds in your hand, right? Don't smell that good. So it's the combination of the hard work and basically enjoyment. Enjoyment can be looking after others. It could be going to a music gig I like to do, or travel, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Looking after the community. But it's the combination of the two, I think, is a key to happiness.
I think it's totally true. I completely agree with you. And I think the World Economic Forum, I know most people don't like these people, but whatever, but they said something I thought was quite interesting. They said that you will own nothing and you will be happy. And I sort of sat back and thought about that. And I thought most people that have got things, they would probably not be very happy about that because they wouldn't want to lose those things. They could be a house, could be a car, whatever. But I sort of look at me where I am right now, and I've given everything away, and I've given literally everything. All my money goes into charity. I pay the bills and put food on the table, and I'm okay with that. But I'm not acquiring assets. I'm not acquiring cars and houses and whatever else along the way. And I don't know if that's a stupid thing or not, but I can tell you one thing: it feels good. It feels good to not have to worry about things, but to actually make a difference in other people's lives. I don't know. I think I've got this delusion that when I die and I knock on the door of the pearly gates in St. Peter Oaks and Christopher opens the door, he goes, Goffy, come on in. You'll be fine. He's not going to say, you wanker, you can go down there. It's like you.
Hopefully there's no door entry fee, right? So, but look, I mean, not having, I don't like complexity in terms of overheads, whatever investment and stuff. I like it simple, so it doesn't take a lot of my time. Obviously, financial advice is not what I should be giving, but people need to, how would I say, plan for their retirement as well. But that aside, sometimes things is just another thing to manage overhead, which takes away from your time of smelling the roses, right?
Exactly. And so I just want to say thank you. We're starting to wrap this up for your support for Meat Magic, because it does mean a lot. We've built a platform. We've built an amazing community. If I put a value on that, I'd say the value of that whole platform and the community would be 20 million plus in valuation. And that's where I'm investing my time and energy into building that. But the whole goal with Meat Magic is to get 10,000 executives and decision makers and BPO and program managers to sign up and just to have some conversations once a month. And at the end of that, if we can do 10,000 of those every month, that's a multi-billion-dollar business, but it's also producing massive amounts of money, which is going to charity and all these different causes and changing the world just by doing what they're doing every day. So you coming on board and giving us a go was really, I've sort of sat back and punched the air metaphorically, because it's a big win to have someone like you come on and experience it. So hopefully that continues. But to finish off, Declan, I want to ask some, they call them Socratic questions. I had to Google that word because I'm thick as pig shit half the time, but
it'll be new to me.
Yeah, but it's like first thing that comes into your head when you hear about it. So say something in an Asian language.
I barely speak English. Say something in an Asian language. I'm not sure. Konnichiwa. There we go.
Oh, that's good. What was the last song that you sang out loud?
I know this. Obviously, I was there. Nothing but the same old story, Paul Brady. It's a song about an angry Irish immigrant into England. I just posted a few. I think it's got some lyrics in there that is quite, how would I say, would apply to a lot of immigrant folks today, landing into countries where they don't feel fully welcome. And I think, there's still a lot of lessons in that song for us today, but it's got a bit of get up and go in that song. And I think I was roaring it this morning.
At least it wasn't Danny Boy.
No, on occasion, at the right occasion.
And finally, do you respect Kanye West?
Do I respect Kanye West? I don't feel qualified to answer that question, but I suspect not, based on the tidbits I heard. But I like to fully research before I'd answer that question. Plus, you probably don't want him coming after me on social media either. You have to find me.
It's very wise.
But yeah, look, probably not. But who knows?
It's very wise. I think everything he said has actually come true. He called out all of those people that were doing bad shit, and no one listened to him, thought he was crazy, and actually what he said was really quite real. So all this.
I'm definitely out of my depth here. I think he things where he's got to win the American election, compare himself to God. But anyway, I'll leave this as your specialist topic, and I'll bow out. I'll bow out of that discussion. I'll stick to what I know. I'll stick to my knitting, which is program delivery.
Exactly, and you know what? I'd love to. I mean, as a partnership, so almost. I mean, your program directors that are dotted around the country. I don't know if there's an angle for us to onboard them onto Meet Magic to do some good, but it could be a great social venture. It could raise quite a bit of money for a charity that Seven cares about. Could go towards.
If we thought there was demand, I've no doubt our folks would be happy to spend some of their time, and say we do quite a lot back into our communities. So I'm sure that if you thought there was demand, I'm sure there'd be no resistance.
It totally is. I think that you mentioned building these shelters and so on. You could almost have all of your, because we could find a charity that does that and that we can donate to, and all of your leaders could have those meetings, and all the funds could go into that to build the shelter. So the whole of Seven Consulting's.
Well, maybe we build or renovate another shelter instead. We wouldn't remove our funding, but look, anything that does good in the community, if there's demand there, we're happy to support.
Declan, you have a cracking. What day is it? Thursday. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Good on you. Thanks, Carl. Thanks.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.